Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Coach's Corner University podcast. I am your host, Paul O'Neid, and as usual, we are brought to you by Coach's Corner University. Head over there, get registered for our education collective with access to almost 200 hours of continuing education resources, as well as access to some of our continuing education courses that are accredited for CEUs through NASM and the NSCA. We're also sponsored by X Factor Labs. Anything you need with regards to peptides, head over there. Code ONEED. Barefoot shoes, my favorite barefoot shoes to wear for conditioning workouts, kettlebells, and anywhere out on the town, because I go out on the town sometimes, as many of you would not believe. Use code ONEED over there. TC Nutrition. Get your protein, get your pre-workout, anything you need supplement-wise. We love them. Code TCXONEED. And then Next Level Strength Co. It wraps, knee sleeves. They got you covered. Code ONEED over there. All right. I think that was my best ad read yet. And to celebrate, we have a very special guest. I'm joined by Dr. Erik, you're not a doctor. Oh, yeah, you
on
are.
my way. I'm on my way.
Oh, okay. Perfect. Erik Bustillo. Erik is a registered dietitian. We met when I was up in Virginia over the summer, hit it off, and I really wanted to chat with him. Sports nutrition, tactical athletes, because you've got experience in the armed forces. And then I think we're going to get into a lot of different topics today. So Erik, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thanks for asking me to be on. And I'm glad that we were able to make it happen.
Absolutely. So for those guests who aren't familiar with you or your work, give us a little bit of a rundown, maybe your education, your experience, and what brought you here today.
For sure. Yeah, I appreciate that. And I'll try to keep it very brief. Just as a cautionary word here, I tend to be long-winded, so I'll try not to be that.
Makes my job easier.
My name is Erik Bustillo. I've been in the industry of dietetics, nutrition, performance, and healthcare as well for well over 15 years now. I am a registered dietitian by trade. I went to Florida International University for my bachelor's. And I've had the opportunity to work with a lot of different individuals. I've worked with professional athletes, NFL, Major League Baseball, WNBA, tennis, golf, recreational athletes, also elite athletes on the collegiate level. I was a dietitian for the Florida International University football team for about a year and a half. And yeah, I've been involved with organizations, specifically like the ISSN, the International Society of Sports Nutrition. I was the co-vice president for a few years. Okay. I'm also a fellow of the organization, so I do have my FISSN. And that's a little bit of my nutrition background. Fortunately, I've been a certified personal trainer for quite some time as well, and that's kind of cool because excuse me, as someone who can kind of blend research, nutrition, training at various levels, whether it's Gen Pop, someone recovering from an injury, an 80-year-old individual who has not, I guess, properly, quote unquote, worked out a day in their life, or, helping out someone who's just a tactical athlete, right? A police officer, military. So having that background in exercise is pretty cool. So that being said, my master's through Concordia University, Chicago, is in applied exercise science and specifically in sports nutrition.
Very cool.
So pretty awesome. I've had this diverse background in like my first gig ever as a dietitian. I was running metabolic carts on people and reviewing their blood work. So I'm looking at their physiological function. And learning about it, like learning what all of this means, because I was early on in my career, and then being able to put that into practice and just kind of helping, someone with cholesterol issues, someone with weight loss issues, weight gain issues, or someone who's getting ready in the off season for their next NFL season. So pretty cool there. And I'm also involved in the CrossFit space. I've been doing CrossFit for 10 years. And in that time, I've always here and there helped people with their nutrition. And I started coaching CrossFit in 2019 here in Miami, Florida, in CrossFit Coconut Grove, being their in-house dietitian and then also coaching CrossFit classes. And a lot of people hate on CrossFit, and I know that it's fun to do it. I was actually one of those people who used to hate on CrossFit. But man, becoming someone who has been immersed in it, it's I feel like they do a really good job with educating people on either movement. I don't like extremist views, so like their whole like hating on carbohydrates thing, I'm not really a fan nor advocate of that. But when it comes to movement, I
Mhm.
feel like they've done a good job with educating their CrossFit trainers and just getting word out to the masses. So yeah, that's I think a little bit of my background in a nutshell, which I also forgot to mention my involvement in research as well.
Mhm.
I'm not this like 24/7, 365 researcher, but I have had the opportunity to be a part of a few review papers, like a couple of ISSN position stands or myths and misconception papers. So we had one, the female athlete position paper. We had a creatine paper that was looking at endurance athletes and creatine. And our most recent one was myths and misconceptions on dietary supplements. What does the law and regulation say?
Oh,
So
interesting.
yeah, super super cool. And then obviously a lot of people don't really know this, but I'm in the process of getting my PhD. So with that, there's more exposure to different things.
You're a
Um,
busy guy, man.
yeah, a lot of things just kind of going on, and then of course I still do a lot of work with in the tactical athlete space, teaching a lot of workshops, specifically with an organization called O2X. They
Mhm.
contract me, they get contracts, and they contract me to be one of their nutrition specialists. So I've done work with Army Reserves. I mean, I've done stuff with like 1 and 2 star Navy admirals,
Oh, cool.
um, just kind of all over, police, fire, military. I've done over 180 workshops or gigs just with that alone. Uh, yeah, so a very long-winded answer just to kind of say a little bit
Listen,
who I
I
am.
think it's great. I think it's great to have context because the more context we have, the more credibility that we establish for you and the conversation that comes forward. The goal of the podcast when I started was like, hey, I just want to showcase special people who do special things for people. And that's like
It's awesome.
I've been really, really blessed with the types of individuals who have come on and spoken. We've had, different, business coaches. I've had CrossFit coaches. I've had strength and conditioning coaches at the D1 level. I've had high school strength coaches, you name it, online coaches. And everyone's perspective is a little bit different. And I think it's important that we all understand the nuance in what we do. Um,
For sure.
the context also helps to understand, like, ultimately, how do you make money in your job, right? You could have easily been, you could have easily gotten your registered dietitian accreditation and just gone to work in a hospital and been totally fine.
Yep.
Um, I worked with a mentee in about a year and a half ago who was doing that exact thing, and he wanted to get out and do the online stuff, but he couldn't get out of the grind of being in the hospital and ended up kind of giving up. And I was like, that's unfortunate, but someone like yourself, you've got your hand in a lot of buckets, you keep things exciting, you work with a lot of different populations. And I think that we as online coaches can learn from that because the advice that we get is like niche, niche, niche. You've done the opposite. You're like, hey, how many different kinds of people can I work with? I have something that people need, and I'm going to try and get it out there. I thought it was hilarious that you mentioned people like to hate on CrossFit. I'll be completely honest. I love CrossFit. I think CrossFit has done more to put a barbell in people's hands
Oh
than
yeah.
anything else in the whole world.
Agreed.
And we would not have the fitness industry that we do today in 2025 if it wasn't for CrossFit. I firmly believe that.
For sure, and I'm with you on that. There's not a mind you, and I always like to kind of caveat my CrossFit stories
Mm.
with I'm not in any way, shape, or form like a CrossFit evangelist, if you will. You know
As
what
if
I
it's
mean?
a
Like I'm not
religion.
like I'm not this like it has to be CrossFit. However, I do believe in the methodology. I believe in the coaching and all of that stuff. But back in I don't know 2012 or 13, I was hating on CrossFit. I was like, oh, it's bad for you. They're having people do these crazy movements, yada yada yada. And I could still see an argument for when people say that, but being in it and being someone who modifies accordingly for people's abilities, whether it's an injury that they've had from before starting CrossFit or it happened thereafter. Being able to modify is important. Intensities, movements. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, listen, there's bad coaching everywhere. I would equate it to, have you ever seen really high level volleyball?
Oh, yes,
It's
definitely.
incredibly exciting. It's so dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever seen volleyball that's just below that?
Yes.
It's awful. There's like it's awful to watch. So I would equate CrossFit to volleyball in the sense that when you're watching like high level CrossFit, these people are freaks of nature.
Yeah, definitely.
But then one level below that, it's just a dumpster fire. So I wanted to start off our discussion. You mentioned performance nutrition and nutrition for health or physique is not the same, but
Hmm.
there is an overlap.
Definitely.
I tend to agree. I've always said that high performance is not healthy, but health will lead to higher performance.
Absolutely.
Talk to me about your stance on that.
Yeah, there's well, you can't have high performance without health.
Right.
Like if someone is, I'll use a very basic example. Someone is sick. They have the a common cold. You're not going to perform at your highest level if you're always getting sick.
Right.
Now, we know there are things that can contribute to someone getting cold from a dietary standpoint, not eating enough, like, period. Forget micronutrients
Yeah.
and protein and not enough calories. Your immune system is not functioning as high as it can be.
Right.
Um, However, we know that performance nutrition is going to be very specific to whatever that X is. We're trying to aim for this X. That's the target.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're trying to perform at the level that we're trying to perform at. We know that if you're performing at this very high level, I would also argue it depends on what the sport might be,
Yeah. The
um,
modality, right?
without a doubt.
Yeah.
Um, Performing at a high level, it's oftentimes not sustainable in various sports. So, for
Oh,
example,
yeah.
look at NFL football.
Right.
The nature of that game is not there's longevity is not in there in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
Um,
I think the average NFL career is less than 2 years.
yeah, I feel like it's somewhere along there those lines. Yeah, let's just say to give a range. I like ranges. 2 to 5 years is like the average or something along those lines. So imagine now, of course, you're gonna have anomalies, but in specific positions, right? Look
Mm-hmm.
at the Tom Brady's, if you will,
Right.
who played for God knows how. I don't even know how long his career was,
I
but
think he
very
played
long.
like 22 or 23 years.
That's a long NFL career. Of course, he's a quarterback,
Mm-hmm.
and there are plenty of other things that we could look at with that, like referees and the organization kind of favoring Tom Brady, where you had the Tom Brady rule
Of
put
course.
into place of a low tackle on the quarterback and all these things. But performance nutrition, it's it's going to depend on what that outcome is that we're looking for. But from a health standpoint, health is always going to be a piece of that.
Mm-hmm.
But now a lot of people get confused because when they look at nutrition, they look at physique
Right.
and they're thinking only physique. And I think that when we talk nutrition, we have to look at it, we have to change the lens with which we view it through.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever, like when you say diet, the first thing that comes to somebody's mind is most likely restriction or weight
Right.
loss. And diet is so much more than that. Yes, it controls weight. It controls weight gain, weight loss, weight maintenance. But our diet and our nutrition is also going to impact performance, is going to impact cognitive abilities, is going to impact our immune system. It's going to impact hormones across the board for women, men, children, all of those things. So nutrition isn't just about weight, nor just physique, but we do know that nutrition plays an imperative role in someone's physique, especially if they have very specific outcomes there.
I like that you started to create a delineation between diet and nutrition. I think the two words should have separate meanings, and I think that
Mm-hmm.
most people conflate them. For me, nutrition is the science of what food does when it enters your body. So if we classify nutrition as the science, diet is all of the factors that go into the decisions you make on what foods go into your mouth.
For sure.
So diet to me is where it gets really interesting, because if we're talking about health and we look at the science, we'd be pretty hard pressed to make an argument against being in a very slight caloric deficit, because we know all of the benefits from insulin sensitivity to optimal body fat, cognitive function. That very slight caloric deficit really ramps you up your health.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm talking like, less than a 200 calorie deficit here, like very small.
Sure. Yeah.
Um, but then when it comes to performance nutrition, we need to fuel for that X that you were talking about. Um, I've been playing, like, obviously I've competed in multiple sports now in the strength world, whether it be powerlifting, bodybuilding, and now doing more endurance work. The nutrition is very different in those areas because the stress that the body is on and the response of the body is going to change based on like what you do to it. So when you're talking about the sustainability of it, for me, it comes down to how long can I do this without it negatively affecting, we'll say, blood work or my lifespan? And then also, how long can I psychologically adhere to this? And what pops into mind is like, we have off seasons and we have in seasons, whether it be for powerlifting, bodybuilding, sports, there's always an off season.
Mm-hmm.
And what do we talk about in the off season? We talk about relinquishing a little bit of the rigidity. We talk about increasing caloric expenditure. We talk about having more freedom in your food choices. But then we look at in season or even like pre-season period.
Yeah. The lead
That's
up.
when the controls ramp up. And I think people try to get too granular with it and try to be restrictive. And when I say restrictive, I don't mean in terms of caloric consumption. I mean in terms of food types, macros. Like, they get essentially the scope of the foods that they eat shrink.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what's your thoughts on that? Like the psychological piece that comes along with nutrition?
I think that there's a lot that goes into it. If we look at the historic aspect of the individual, um, everyone has their own story with food, with both diet and nutrition. Um, so a very common example, just looking at the general population, you have the diet industry. The diet industry we know very well. They they try to offer a solution, right? And in that solution, what is it? It's going to be that we have. Sorry if you hear my niece in the background.
That's okay.
Um, so what we see with them is that they're going to focus specifically on weight loss in the diet industry, um, and with that, I mean it's a business, right? So they
Hmm.
are trying to sell this to as many people as they can, and and I don't mean this in a bad way, but there is a large level of ignorance when it comes to nutrition.
I would
Um,
agree.
there's um, there are definitely cognitive biases. That's one thing, but just ignorance as far as like people not knowing enough about how to make a change, what is better for them or worse for them. And I feel like the diet industry just makes that worse for them, right? So that's where we have the fear of carbohydrates, right?
Hmm.
Um, and I talk about this often in the tactical athlete space, in the executive space, call it executive athlete or corporate athlete. Um, I mentioned to them that hey, not a large percentage of people have eating disorders. But if I were to guess, I would guess that a lot of people do have disordered eating patterns,
I would agree with you wholeheartedly.
right? And I think that stems from. this fear of carbohydrate, the fear of fat. That's just a big part of it. So again, with that being said, the psychological aspect of nutrition and diet, everyone has their own story.
Mhm.
Everyone eats, and everyone now, I shouldn't say everyone, but a lot of people have access to information, good information, not so good information, which now with that, if you take just the general population individual and you have a conversation with them, and I mean, as a coach, I know that you've seen it. We have to reprogram people's habits and tendencies,
Mhm.
because when they were 8 years old, they got put on some very restrictive nutrition regimen
Mhm.
by their parents and or a doctor, and they have lived their entire life somewhat confused, for lack of a better term, from 8 years old to age 56. And now they come and see us,
Right.
and we have to rewire all of this. Um, and that's just one example, right? Like imagine the working with a gymnast that has a whole host of things going down that rabbit hole. Someone who was a wrestler in high school and now they, sit at a desk all day, but they still think what they did in high school was the right way to help lose that body weight. Um, so there's a lot that kind of goes into the psychological aspect of nutrition, and that goes to something that I left out of like my intro. I think that scientific communication plays an extremely important role, because not everyone is trained in reading research and understanding these things, but we have to try to put our biases aside and communicate just facts and data to individuals while interpreting what this may or may not mean without causing fear, right?
I had no idea that this conversation was going to go in this direction, but I'm so happy it did because this is a topic that I think a lot about because I work with everywhere from professional athlete all-time world record holders to the newest client that I just onboarded is a 47-year-old woman who wants to learn how to train hard. So I have
Okay,
like a big spectrum of
for
people.
sure.
And the quote that comes to mind for me when talking about nutrition is the physiology only matters as much as the psychology allows.
Yes,
So I think we have a pretty good grasp on what food does when it enters the body. Like obviously we're still learning new things. There's advances in, ketone esters are coming on the market and we're seeing what's happening with mega dosing creatine and we're still learning things as we go.
for sure.
But in
Probiotics
general,
and all of that.
yeah, in general, we know that for anaerobic glycolytic exercise, you're probably going to want to eat a higher carbohydrate diet. For
Hmm.
more aerobic exercise, you're probably going to want to have some metabolic flexibility so that you have the ability to burn fats, but also the ability to burn carbohydrates. We know that for the highest level of performance, you can't be eating in a deficit. Like we know these things. But how do we communicate the science to an individual who already is coming to you with a lifetime of experiences with something that potentially causes them a tremendous amount of stress, right? Because they think they know, but they know they don't, right?
Yeah,
Then that same thing is also a way that we bond with friends and family. It's a way that we soothe when we're stressed. It's a way that we dissociate and give ourselves pleasure when things are wrong. This like food is so all encompassing to our psychology. I make the joke with my clients sometimes. It's like, if you want to know how crazy you are, let me put you in a deficit.
mm,
Because all of your emotions, all of your stress management strategies, I see it all the time with my bodybuilding clients.
for
Like we
sure.
get to that last 6 weeks and they just become a complete basket case. But I think it's important to have these conversations and say, well, okay, well, how do we support people? How do we show them that there is a better way? And I'm sure, dealing with the range of clientele that you have, you must spend a great deal of time breaking down these preconceived, we'll call them beliefs around food.
Definitely. Yeah, a big part of it is going to be, well, first and foremost, I have to build trust with
Mhm.
these individuals. If they're just kind of like, this guy's a dietitian, he's probably just going to tell me to go vegan, and that's going to solve all my issues.
It's not.
Um, and, for sure. And hopefully, if those people come into, let's say, a workshop, I hope that by at least 10 minutes into them hearing me talk, that their barriers are lowered a little bit,
Mhm.
because now they're going to be a little bit more receptive. So building that trust is huge for sure, but then that's where education comes in. I don't ever want anybody to, now as a side note, I will make fun of, I mean, you name it. I'll make fun of vegan, I'll make fun of keto, I'll
Of
make fun
course.
of, you know what I mean? And it's
They're
all it's
just
all
they're just asking for it though at this
they're
point.
asking for it. I make fun of CrossFitters also, like
Yeah.
being one, quote unquote, right?
Well,
Um,
even the anti-carb approach to CrossFit has always just been a head scratcher for me because it is the most anaerobic glycolytic thing you can possibly do. So
Absolutely.
anyway,
Yeah. Yeah. That's
I digress.
yeah, for sure. I was gonna say that's a rabbit hole that I'm like, I might spend too much time on. So, as far as easing people's tension when it comes to nutrition, I do it in a joking way, but also like this might sound um very, I don't know what the word, like woo woo, if you will.
Mhm.
But it's very true. In my opinion, I feel that we should come from a place of empathy when we are working with people,
Absolutely.
right? So that, because some people might think like, no, like you just have to tell people what to do and so
No.
on and so forth. And I'm like, I there might be a time and place for that, might, and there's a very big, it depends factor there. But most of the time, I find that just coming from a place of empathy, understanding where this person is coming from, why do they want to go on a keto diet, for example? And there's a time and place for keto and vegan as well. I'm not going to sit here. I'm I'm not neutral religious, right? I'm like
You're
agnostic.
agnostic. Yeah.
Exactly. No dogma in my approach, none of that, because
Same.
nutrition is a science,
Mhm.
and as a dietitian, by training, I am a scientist from the coursework and all of those things. But at the same time, I know that people have their own beliefs. So the education component comes really big into play, but I have to understand, where is this person or where are these people coming from, to be able to help them make some sort of a change. And then from there, it's a very slow approach, which some people might not like that, because change takes time. The
Agreed.
only time that I've seen a drastic change happen immediately is in drastic measures, whether it was some sort of an emergency, a medical diagnosis, or the person was just kind of like, they had that brain where they're like, okay, my X $1 million contract is going to rely on me gaining X amount of weight. Then whatever, just tell me what to do. Similar to what you
Yeah.
said, people
It's a,
go through seasons.
it's a call to action. Like there's a call to
Exactly.
action that is strong enough to trigger change.
For sure. For
But
sure.
ultimately, like the change takes time because the change, especially when it comes to nutrition, is built through habits.
Yes.
And habits take so long to ingrain,
Mm-hmm.
um, to the point where I look at my nutrition. A lot of my clients will use me as an example and be like, "Oh, well, you're so locked in with your nutrition." It's like, yeah, I've been doing it for 20 years. And
Yep.
at this point, eating the meals that I eat is like brushing my teeth. You've
Literally.
never done it before.
For sure.
So there's no comparison to be made. Um, let's talk a little bit about building trust, because I think that is something that you said, hey, I'm going to lead with empathy. And I think it's important that you mentioned that we have to validate people's experiences. If you come in guns blazing and tell people, hey, what you think and what you believe about food is bullshit, they're immediately going to shut down.
For
They're
sure.
not going to listen to you. You're going to get nowhere.
Yep.
So you have to validate that experience. And then one thing that I try to do is I look at the lowest hanging fruit, pun intended, possible to make a change.
Yeah.
Um, and I also try to one of the approaches that I try to take in most cases is focus on abundance versus restriction. What
Okay.
can I add that will essentially usually
Mm.
take away calories?
Yeah.
So if I tell someone, hey, uh, I'm not going to have you count any calories. I just want you to track your whole food protein So all the protein sources that you eat, I want you to measure them and track them, and I need you to hit X number. And they'll come to me and they'll say, oh my God, I'm so full all the time. But their body weight starts to creep down. Then that opens the door for me. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
well, it's funny you notice that because protein is very highly satiating. It also has a high thermic effect of food. And then you can get into the education part. But in my opinion, you build trust through that validation. And then by trying to focus on the smallest possible change where you can get a win, and that just kind of opens that door slightly. And then you kick it down with education.
Absolutely, I agree. I think that the 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 most important factor is definitely going to be that trust component. So what the way that I'll kind of look at it is um, how, and I oftentimes mention this to people. I say, how do we get to better, right? Because
Okay.
that's
Yeah.
that's what I want to do. I want to get to better. Um, with that, what is the what's the lowest barrier of entry, and how can we overcome that? Oftentimes, I'll directly ask individuals. I'll say, "What do you think is the easiest thing that you can do right now?" And it might be something as for some people simple as walking for 10 minutes, um, twice a day, 3 days a week, right? Trying to be very specific and all of
Yeah.
those things. Um, because now I kind of let them make that decision of, hey, for us as coaches and even as educators, I feel like we should ask the right questions, the questions that come from empathy,
Give
right?
them autonomy as well.
Give them autonomy. Yeah, absolutely. Um, so I think once people can see that, that quote, people want to know how much you care before they care how much you know.
Yeah, of course.
I think that plays a very big role in what we do in changing people's lives,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's through education, through helping them understand their own physiology. Some people might not even care to know the science,
Yeah.
but they want to know, like, oh dang, this guy cares for me, and
Mm-hmm.
like what they're telling me is helping me in some way. Like you said, like if they see the scale starting to come down for someone who wants to lose some weight, like wow, that's a big deal for this person. um so yeah, trust it plays a huge role, and if we come from an empathetic standpoint, that helps us,
Mm-hmm.
because now we're asking the questions that help us kind of fill that void of curiosity, right? We want to know what maybe what makes this person tick. Why do they do what they do? Um, and I gotta say, to anyone listening who works with people or is looking to work with people, it takes energy. It takes
Of
energy
course.
from us, right? We have to want to do that. So now, I recently saw a quote that said, "Be a fountain, not a drain." Um, and I like that because it's kind of like, hey, if I can fill other people's cups and at the same time not really empty from mine, right? Because the fountain kind of like keeps on going. It stays pretty full. That's a beautiful place to be in. Regardless, though, it takes effort. It takes mental energy to ask these questions and to care. Because once you have that trust with individuals, um, then eventually they're like they'll run through a brick wall for you, kind of thing.
Yeah, I see it all the time, and it's it really is. It's a function of like showing how much you care can be done in so many different ways. It can
Mm,
be done through the way that we communicate. Ultimately, the way you and I have described communication with clients is with motivational interviewing, right?
absolutely.
Prompting them with questions that allow them to come to their own conclusions. It comes with providing autonomy. If you want to be trusted by someone, the best thing you can do is trust them, and then it
I like
follows
that.
suit. Um, but then it comes down to like the dynamic between coach and client, because a lot of coaching relationships that I see in the online space especially is the coach is an authority over the client. But when we look at even something as simple as workplace dynamics, the most happy employees feel like they have ownership over their role. So
Yep.
if you want people to follow the plan, the best thing you can do is give them ownership over it. Let them exercise their agency. So when you're asking your clients questions like, hey, what do you think is the smallest change you can make, but that you can make consistently? Okay, it's walking three times a week. Cool. Let's see if you can do that. You let them do it. They'll probably succeed because it was a small change, and then you move on. As long as those habits kind of stack over time,
Oh yeah.
now you're building this lattice of tools within their toolbox that they can
Mm-hmm.
use on a daily basis when making decisions. I was working with a client right now. She sent me a message on Sunday that said, hey, my husband and I want to order Five Guys. What should I do? And my response was, well, if you order Five Guys, you're making the decision that it's okay to be in a caloric surplus today. You're also making the decision that you're probably going to have an upset stomach and some bloating for a couple of days afterwards. But you're making the decision to enjoy some quality time and bonding with your husband. If you choose to not have the burger and fries, you're saying, I value not having an upset stomach, maintaining my caloric deficit, and but I'm missing out on quality time with my husband. So you have to ask yourself, which do you value more? And the fact that you're reaching out to me already tells me that you're asking these questions. And that in itself is a huge win.
For sure.
Here's where my approach differs from a lot of people is my response to her was, I personally don't care what decision you make as long as it's the right decision for you. I will not judge you based on what you do, but we're going to have a conversation about it in your check-in.
Mm-hmm. That's
That's
huge.
all we're trying to do is we're trying to create conversations. We're trying to create opportunities to gather data because if she ate that burger and then she saw her weight spike for a couple of days afterwards, how does that make her feel?
Mm.
Right?
Yeah.
How does that make her feel about her results? And when you're coming into a situation where I'm sure you've had this in your coaching practice, oh, I'm just not getting the results that I need. But you know full well that that person hasn't been following the plan. How do you
Mm-hmm.
navigate that conversation? Right?
Yeah.
You navigate that conversation by having it every single week and allowing them to make those decisions. That agency piece is so, so important. When you're dealing with clients, let's say in the tactical space or in the executive space, where these are like very high agency people,
Mm-hmm.
does that approach differ than when you're working with somebody who is maybe in a professional athlete space where they're not necessarily used to making their own decisions, or maybe a gen pop space where they're really looking for you to guide them in a specific direction?
That's a really good question. I as an overall, like as a whole, the approach remains the same. I'm
Okay.
always going to ask questions. I'm always going to implement motivational interviewing in some way. Um, but it does depend on the needs of the individual, right?
Okay.
On their going back to what season of their life they are in.
Hmm.
Is going to depend on that. And of course, everyone is a little bit different. So I might be a little bit more direct with some people as far as like, hey, this is what you've got to do. Um, if the conversation goes that way, if I
Hmm.
see that, okay, this person just kind of needs like some direct instruction for this specific thing, this specific moment, then I'll be like, hey, look, aim for this, that, and the third, but still doing it in a way where I want to make sure that it's setting them up for success. I'm going to
Yep.
ask the questions that allow me to know, okay, is this even going to be a feasible instruction or
Or
action plan?
or what does success look like for that person?
Exactly. That's another thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's not
Like.
necessarily just going to be losing 20 pounds, right? A lot of times it's going to be improving cognitive function while they're
Hmm.
working at the desk because they're meeting throughout the entire day, you know? But I will say, and I really like what you said about your client and the Five Guys, the burger place. It reminded me that I try to work in a way and help people in a way where the philosophy is we're going to die one day.
Yeah.
So how do we choose to live? Right now, what I mean by that is You could be I'm gonna die one day, so screw it.
Yeah, just be a
Like
hedonist. Yeah.
exactly. Or I'm gonna die one day, so I'm gonna make the best of it in the sense of, okay, and now that means I'm gonna be as fit as I can be. I'm gonna do all the things to help uh, um, elongate that health span. Can that health span and lifespan be a 1-to-1 ratio, and then I die at 103 years old just because I'm 103 years old? You know, um,
Mm.
so I come from that kind of philosophy where it's like, yeah, we want to maximize living, we want to enjoy the burger and fries with our significant other, but I really love the way that you framed that conversation with your client. That is, like, in my opinion, an exceptional way to go about it. Everyone's different, so how we approach it, it can be the same in philosophy, but the how, the actionable part, can vary from person to person.
Yeah, like I'm sure the approach that you would take to somebody whose nutrition will impact multi-million-dollar salaries is going to differ between the stay-at-home mom who wants to enjoy a burger and fries with her husband, right?
For
It's
sure.
just the needs of the individual, the season of life, as you said, and what ultimate goal are we after? Understanding that we only have one life to live,
Yep.
and people have different philosophies on that. I think I think the other factor here is how long do they want to take to get the results? And
It's a big one.
the more often you side on the pleasure uh, side of the spectrum, the longer the process is going to take, because essentially you're just shrinking that caloric deficit over the course of a week, and then that diet's going to take you a little bit longer. One thing that comes to mind when talking about this too is how we set expectations for people, because oftentimes people will come to us with these grandiose goals, but then they're maybe not willing to do the things required to get to those goals. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think that the the psychological aspect of coaching an individual is enormous. So actually, just recently, I had an athlete who she competed in her first powerlifting competition. It was like
Okay.
a small, like a local one down here in South Florida. And mind you, she's had, gosh, I forget how many children she's had. I think she has 3 kids now.
Okay.
Um, and the she grew up in a weight based sport, or martial art. So there's already some weight ideas there, some nutrition ideas there, and we've been working together in some capacity. It hasn't been consistent over this time, but I want to say maybe something like 4 years or so. Again,
Okay.
as an on and off kind of thing. Um, Helping her through the pregnancy was a part of it, helping her with postpartum and getting her nutrition back on, and just kind of like coaching that psychological aspect of like, hey, it's a little by little approach. Anyway, she ends up getting gold in her category at the powerlifting competition, and she tells me via text. And mind you, I'm super proud of her because she has just crushed it. She's a very dedicated individual, and she had to make weight. She made weight. She was spot on. She felt great. Um, but she said to me, she was like, you were such an important part of this process. And for me, it was just the nutrition aspect alone and helping her with like stress mitigation as well. Um, and I think as a coach, it's important to hear that. It kind of like makes us feel
Of
good
course.
about that. But to me, to get back to your question, she has had many goals throughout the time frame that we have worked together. Some of it might be weight related. Some of it might be physique specific. So a percentage even on a body composition machine. How she feels with her in particular. And again, she's crushing like everything right now. But with her specifically, the focus really had to shift towards, hey, what's the most important thing for you right now? So identifying that was a
Mhm.
huge part of the conversation. And then from there, having to kind of use my expertise and experience in, all right, well, this is what the specific, you want these three things. I get that. And especially this is the big one. But for right now, it sounds like this is the one that we kind of have to go after. So
Mhm.
it's kind of like a chipping away aspect. We chip away, we kind of
Yeah.
go executing little by little and helping her feel comfortable with what she's doing, where eventually the that little goal turns into, all right, very weight specific for this competition, and then the overarching goal is wanting to get, place as best as I can, hopefully gold, in this one specific competition. And that's just like one approach, because there are other individuals. Another one comes to mind where, yes, they wanted to lose weight, but what we had to work on first, and again through conversation and empathy and understanding where she was at and where she was coming from, we had to mitigate stress in her life. This is a different person. There were a lot of stressors around, and they were moving from one place to another, and there were familial things and this and that, where we had to shift the focus from, hey, look, we want to continue to do what's best for you. We're not going to focus 100% on what that scale is saying right now. We have to manage your IBS. We have to figure out where the stressors are coming from. And then from there, we grow into regular physical activity, into the weight loss component of it. So there's just like many things that go happening. But I feel like if we're able to identify the one thing that we can go after and then continue working at that, it's oftentimes a good place to start and continue from there.
Yeah. So just identifying priorities. What's the most pressing priority right now, but also what's the most pressing priority that will lead us to checking off the box for that following priority. I think that's really helpful. I want to shift gears a little bit and
Sure.
talk about, you mentioned keto and vegan and all these other strategies. I too am very nutritionally agnostic, but I'm religious about results, right? I
I
want
got
to
you.
get the results.
Sure.
Um, I have always looked at these different nutritional strategies as tools in my toolbox because, as you mentioned, like there is a time and a place for a client to go keto. There is a time and a place for a client to do some fasting. There's a time and a place to, implement literally any nutritional intervention,
Agreed.
as long as we respect a few key factors within that. One of the things that I've been diving into a little bit more has been the concept of metabolic flexibility.
Hmm.
Can you speak a little bit to what metabolic flexibility would be?
Yeah, for sure. Although first off, I got to give a shout out to Dr. Mike T. Nelson.
Oh yeah,
He's like the metabolic flexibility guy. At least in my brain, I'm just like shout out to Mike. He's awesome
yeah. I've learned a lot from Mike. He's been on the
for sure.
podcast a couple times. Great friend.
Man, he's a awesome person and just a walking brain.
Hmm.
But yes, that metabolic flexibility is the body's ability to use a particular nutrient at a specific time, right? So, how flexible can my body go from using carbohydrates when optimal to using fats when optimal? And hopefully, never really using protein as a source of energy in some way, shape, or form, because protein should be doing what protein has to be doing, right?
Right.
So that's kind of my thought on metabolic flexibility, which, I think that, to your point, there's a time and place for all these things. A little more fat, a little less fat, a little more carb. What does your training look like? And this is just performance, because if we look at from an overall health standpoint and the ketogenic diet and what it was created for with children with seizures,
Hmm.
I mean, the ketogenic diet specifically for children with seizures as a form of medical nutrition therapy, in many cases it works better than medications. Right
Yeah,
now,
absolutely.
to
Yep.
anyone listening, don't take this as medical advice and the whole disclaimer thing, but that's what we've seen. Like, why would we not implement that
Mhm.
if possible, right? So there, I wholeheartedly agree. Metabolic flexibility is definitely one of those things that I think more people can benefit from if they started implementing these strategies. But that also goes back to people being afraid of carbohydrates and all the thing. When you have, again, I talked about CrossFit and the fear mongering of carbs and whatever, and it's just like metabolic flexibility would be beneficial for probably everybody. So
Yeah.
why not implement it in some way?
Yeah. I've been kind of playing with this whole concept of metabolic flexibility because of the training that I've been doing. It's so
Okay,
broad in terms of scope.
sure.
So and the challenge has always been for me to apply these high level concepts to somebody who doesn't have as much control over their nutrition, their schedule, these types of things. So
Yeah.
for me, it comes down to adherence and consistency. Like, how can I set someone up to do mostly the right things most of the time for a really long time? Because that's how we're going to get results. But for someone like myself, I'm personally dealing with some gut health issues. So there's some dietary changes I needed to make on that end.
Mm-hmm.
But then I'm also looking at, well, what are some of the things that I can do to optimize my training? So one of the things that I've been doing is I have a couple of runs during the week that are longer duration, lower intensity. So I do those fasted.
Okay.
And then I have a couple of sessions in the morning. Usually I do my runs first thing in the morning. So I'll do them fasted. Then I have a couple of conditioning sessions first thing in the morning that are more metabolically demanding, bike sprints, or this morning I did more interval running.
Okay.
So I'll have carbohydrates before I do those things.
For
And
sure.
in case of the bike sprints, I'll have some during. Then with my weight training, well, I want to have carbohydrates during my weight training. And then, the metabolic activities I do after that, I probably want to have carbohydrates. But I fast every Sunday. So from Saturday at dinner time to Sunday at dinner time, I'll do a 24-hour fast. That's mainly for my gut health.
Mm-hmm.
But I know that my first run on Monday is a low intensity run. So if I only have 2 meals on Sunday, 2 larger meals Sunday evening, I'm probably going to be still glycogen depleted Monday morning. So if I was to plan a higher intensity exercise session first thing in the morning, I'd be setting myself up for failure.
Yeah.
And this is where the adherence piece comes in. It's like, how do we get the average person, who is going to be most of our clients, to leverage metabolic flexibility? Or do we even try?
Man, that's a really good question. Um, I think for some people, because again, everyone is different. For some people, we don't even really try. Like,
Yep.
because it's gonna depend. Like, where are they in the journey?
Mm-hmm.
As a quick side note, before I forget, I do something similar because with my training, I have a half marathon coming up in a couple of months. My longer, easier runs, I'm like, you know what? Let me just do this fasted.
Yep.
Uh, Honestly, I do it just because I haven't felt anything. But I'm like, you know what? Why not? Let me just give this a shot.
Yeah.
But yes, I think that so metabolic flexibility, I think that it's useful, and a part of me is kind of like I wish everyone could and would implement it in some way, shape, or form, because I'm of the opinion in this case that it can help with improving insulin sensitivity. Right, we want
Absolutely.
the better, or doing away with the insulin resistance. Um, for some people, maybe the metabolic flexibility component can help them with controlling their calories, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they're not going to have as many cravings and whatnot. Um, that being said, uh, it takes a certain either kind of individual, or it takes a certain individual being at a certain point in their life to be able to do something like going for a 5 mile jog that is maybe going to take them, let's just say, 50 minutes or more, an hour, and not eat anything.
Mm-hmm.
Like, not everyone's going to be ready for something along those lines mentally. Like, forget the physical aspect. Like, that's another thing too. But mentally, they might not be ready for that. But still, I think when we coach people, we can still push them in certain directions of what we know that science shows, like, hey, for this specific event and activity, we should probably incorporate something like this. So it's like, okay, how can I implement a little bit of like a metabolic flexibility ish into what this specific person is doing?
I'm so glad you said that, because one of the things that I do for a lot of my clients, and it's in the same vein, is so those clients who don't necessarily have the habits in place to have like a hard, fast, metabolically flexible plan. So
Hmm.
maybe they don't have the skills to fast for 24 hours, or they don't have the ability to plan their training in specific ways to be fasted or non-fasted. I'll just have them track protein and calories and then tell them to eat based on their palate. And what ends up happening is they have some days that are higher fats and they have some days that are higher carbs. But because I'm standardizing for protein and calories, that metabolic flexibility is kind of already built in. And it
Yeah,
works fantastic for clients who are potentially dealing with insulin resistance issues or maybe have a ton of body fat to lose because they end up becoming metabolically flexible simply by me giving them more freedom.
for sure. I love that
Yeah.
strategy. That's man, your approach really just is like I I wish more people knew and heard the things that you're saying, because that autonomy of the individual while still dropping science into it is just like that's what our, just speaking to the United States specifically, that's what the country needs to be overall healthier, right? So you're crushing it.
I think, well, I appreciate it. And
Sure.
you can come on and give me compliments whenever you want. Um, I think the issue that we run into a lot of the time with the nutrition education that people are getting, and I use the word nutrition education very like it's pretty sparse, but
Yeah.
they're looking for best as opposed to what you said, better.
Hmm.
So they're thinking, well, I have to be fully keto if I want to lose weight, or I need to cut my calories all the way down, the 1400 calorie diet, right?
Yeah.
They're coming to this goal with the thought that they can have a perfect plan. If there was any message that I could get out to anyone who's trying to achieve a goal, it's that there is no perfect plan. There's just what you can stick to.
Absolutely.
And if we relinquish that control and we relinquish those expectations on the person, I think we're going to be in a better place overall is what I personally feel. But that's going to require more conversations like this. That's going to
Mhm.
require more coaches like us to speak up,
Yeah.
to say, hey, you don't need a wholesale change to your nutrition strategy. You just need to change one thing and then change one more thing. And you said something at the beginning of the conversation about the diet industry where people are trying to sell a product. And so people believe that lifetime sustainable progress can happen in 12 weeks or
Hmm.
75 hard.
Yep.
And I think we're doing everyone a disservice by trying to market our services that way.
Yeah. 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 And that's a I think it's important for people to hear that side of things, because there's an idea that something great can be accomplished in a very short period of time.
Yeah.
Um, and I think people need to understand what realistic looks like. Mind you, I'm a shoot for the stars kind of person,
Oh, me too. Huh.
but when it comes to physiology, psychology, habit change, that definitely shoot for the stars. At the same time, there has to be this acknowledgement that good things do take time. Like an overnight success takes years, as the saying goes, you know? So, and habit change, when people say, yeah, it takes 2 weeks to change a habit, it takes 21 days to change a habit. I'm just kind of like, it takes one day to get started, that's for sure. But in
Yeah.
reality, you're looking at least a year, in my opinion, when it comes to this behavior. And even then, depending on the person and where they're at in their life, they can truly change their habit over a 3-year time span and then revert back to what they were doing,
Easily.
3 years in one day.
Easily. I look at it so similar to like, I mean, the easiest way for me to conceptualize a lot of things is with a barbell because, I've lifted with a barbell my whole life.
Yeah.
And people will say, well, I have amazing technique. I'm like, yeah, you have amazing technique at 60%. But once
Mm,
I put more weight on the bar, your technique's going to break down.
yeah.
And maybe you set a new PR. But what's going to happen when you try to add weight to that PR? Your technique's going to break down. And habit change is the same. So say you're in a season of life where things are calm and you're doing fantastic with your nutrition. and then someone drops an atomic bomb on your life, is that habit going to stick?
Mm,
That's the test.
for sure.
And the thing is, as you go through life, I'm speaking as an old guy now, there's going to be a lot of atomic bombs that get dropped in your life. I've gone through a lot of challenges in my life, but the one thing that's remained constant is lifting and nutrition, because those are foundational habits to my identity. And that is something that I think people need to look at is, am I becoming the person that has achieved the thing?
Yeah.
Because have you ever achieved a goal and then been like, okay, cool, I'm done?
I've had that experience before.
Okay.
Like in a sense, but now the goal, it wasn't anything that was like it didn't like cost a lot of like struggle or anything to me either. Like it wasn't this like big challenge,
So
you
there was no
know?
pay, there was no like psychological payoff to it.
Yeah, it was just kind of like, okay, cool, like I did that thing. All right, no big deal, you know?
Yeah,
But then there have been times when it's like I achieved something, but then I'm kind of like, can can I go a little more? Like, you know what I
exactly.
mean?
Exactly. And I think that most people are like that. Most people, they unlock some capacity within them and they're
Hmm.
like, oh, well, I didn't, I'll use my run this morning. I did 4 intervals of 4 minutes with 2 minutes rest, 2 minutes slow in between. Two of the 4 rounds were below 8 minute miles. And I'm like, I finished that run. My peak heart rate was 190 during the run, which for me at 38 years old is wild. Um, but I'm like, I didn't die, therefore I have more in the tank. So next time I'm going to try to do better. And
Oh yeah,
most people have that mentality. So why would you think that there is one way to accomplish a goal or one thing that is going to get you to where you want? Because your goals are going to change. Your
for
life
sure.
circumstances are going to change. And returning back is like, how many tools in the toolbox can we give you to adapt these habits to the changes over your lifespan?
Yeah.
I could talk about, honestly, I could talk about nutrition all day. I think it's the most, I think nutrition is so much more fascinating and nuanced than training. Like
Yeah.
training's pretty easy. You do the work, you get better,
Yeah.
right? You do the work, your body is under stress, your body adapts to the stress, and then you just keep toggling the intensity of the stress over time.
Hmm.
But when you talk about something like nutrition, that there's so much psychology involved, there's so much emotion involved, there's so much social pressure involved,
Oh yeah.
it becomes a really tough nut to crack.
For sure. That's a big one too. Like you mentioned social pressure, and something that I talk about a lot with people is alcohol.
Okay.
And that is a big one because the populations that I work with, they tend to gravitate towards alcohol. Um,
Hmm.
just, you know, as a hey, end of the day, go home from work, or
Yeah.
it's a part of work, meaning they see people and they have to, in air quotes, go and participate in this.
Yep.
And those are very real social pressures. So to your point, there's always going to be, you know, something, some kind of either an atomic bomb or like little grenades
Yeah.
that pop up. But what are we able to consistently do? And that's where I think people find that the magic happens. It's not like a like I've had people ask me before, like, "Hey, do you work out?" And I'm like, "Man, it's like breathing to me. Like it's similar to you. It's just such a strong part of who I am that not working out wouldn't it doesn't register. It doesn't make sense in my brain, you know?"
Yeah. Do you work out?
Yeah.
Dude, I get the weirdest looks when I go out in public sometimes, especially since I moved to the US.
Yeah.
People are so much more vocal about it. They're like, bro, like how much you lifting? I'm like, my response usually is like, oh, I don't actually lift. I just do yoga. And they go, what? I'm like, no, man, get out of here. And I just keep walking. Um, I want to be respectful of your time. And I do have a couple of quick hit questions for you that I
Yeah.
ask all the guests on the podcast.
Let's do
First
it.
question I have for you. What are you most excited about right now?
Um, I'm most excited about um, some up and coming work opportunities that are happening. So
Mhm.
that's definitely exciting. and I'm going to do a High Rocks event. My
Oh, cool.
girlfriend and I and a few friends were flying to California to do one out there. And then a month and a half after that, I have my half marathon. So those are some personal and fitness related things that excite me right now.
Love it. Um, if there was a message that you could have on a billboard on the side of the highway and everyone who drove by could read that billboard, what would it say?
Something that I've said to people since practicing as a dietitian. I kind of came up with this little quote. At least I think I came up with it, and if I didn't, I
Eh,
apologize to whoever. But
there's no fact checking on this podcast, so go
okay,
ahead.
there we go. Um, so I'm not getting canceled or anything.
No.
It's trust the process, be patient, and stay consistent.
Yeah. Perfect. Um, last question. If there was somebody that you would like to see me interview on the podcast, who would it be? But the caveat is that you have to help me get them on the podcast.
Who would it be? I think that. Oh, you know who I think could be awesome, actually? Um, she's a friend of mine and the co-host of our podcast. Our podcast is called Your Food Matters.
Mhm.
Um, she is a trailblazer in the field. She's a dietitian, a PhD. Her name is Dr. Susan Kleiner. Um, she has, gosh, what edition is it on? Power Eating is the name of her book. I think the
Oh,
first
okay.
one came out in 1997, maybe. I
I think
think
I read her book.
maybe she's
Is it
awesome.
is it is it published through Human Kinetics?
Oh gosh, it. You know something? I'm not sure. It might be. There's a
I'm
chance
gonna
that.
I'm gonna I'm gonna look it up after the podcast.
Yeah. Power Eating. So Sue is awesome. She's just a wealth of knowledge, a great human being. She was working with like pro teams as a dietitian before it was a thing, and she's also like into the industry and ingredient side of things as well. A trailblazer in the field. Her PhD, if I'm not mistaken, was she was looking at like testosterone use in bodybuilders in like the was it the 80s or early 90s when she did it, like very on the fringes kind of topic for that point in time. So she's definitely someone that I would say there are plenty of other people, but if I'm just picking one right now on the spot, it's going to be Dr. Susan Kleiner.
I'll definitely reach out for an intro. Erik, where can people find you?
Best place, especially whenever I'm active on there, I go through things on social media where I'm like, oh God, stop. But anyway, it's on Instagram at Erik Bustillo, so ErikBustillo. I'm on LinkedIn, um, but Instagram is the main place. Yeah.
Okay, sounds good.
All
Erik, I
right.
really appreciate your time today. Appreciate the discussion. And everyone, thank you so much for listening. Please make sure to like, share, subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, and we'll catch you on the next one.